stood at the edge of the military compound, his heart pounding as he watched the legendary Navy SEALs warming up for their training exercise. At 18 years old, he looked even younger than his age, with a slight frame that made him appear more like a college freshman than someone who belonged among America's elite warriors. The morning sun cast long shadows across the shooting range and could feel the weight of dozens of skeptical eyes on him. The invitation to join this elite training session had come as a complete shock. Had been serving as a trainee at the naval base for only 6 months, working mostly maintenance duties and basic training exercises. His superiors had noticed his exceptional performance during standard marksmanship tests, but nobody expected him to be thrown into the deep end with the SEALs so suddenly. The official explanation was that they needed an extra body for their advanced sniper training simulation, but suspected there was more to it than that. Commander Jake, a 20-year veteran with arms like tree trunks and scars that told stories of countless missions, approached with a barely concealed smirk. Had earned his reputation through blood, sweat, and more dangerous situations than most people could imagine. His team respected him not just for his rank, but for his ability to perform under pressure that would break ordinary men. Looking down at, saw nothing but a kid who had probably never faced real danger in his life. "So you're the hotshot trainee everyone's been talking about," said, his voice carrying the kind of authority that made recruits stand. "I hope you understand this isn't some video game, son. We're dealing with real scenarios here, situations that could mean life or death for actual operators in the field." Nodded respectfully, trying to keep his voice steady. "Yes, sir, I understand. I'm here to learn and do my best." His words sounded confident enough, but inside he was fighting a storm of nerves. These weren't just any soldiers. They were legends, men who had completed missions that would never be, who had saved lives in situations that ordinary people couldn't even imagine. The other team members gathered around, each one representing years of specialized training and real-world experience. There was, whose steady hands had saved countless lives during medical emergencies in combat zones, had survived 3 tours in Afghanistan and could read terrain like a book. Williams had been through sniper school twice and held records that younger soldiers could only dream of achieving. Each man carried himself with the quiet confidence that came from knowing exactly what he was capable of under pressure. "Look at this baby face," chuckled, elbowing. "What's next? Are we going to start recruiting from high school yearbook committees?" The laughter that followed wasn't mean-spirited, but it was clear that was seen as an outsider, someone who didn't belong in their world of precision and deadly serious business. Had grown up in a small farming town where hunting was as common as Sunday church services. His grandfather had been a World War II veteran who taught him to shoot when he was barely tall enough to hold a rifle properly. Those early morning hunting trips had taught patience, focus, and respect for the power of accurate shooting. But standing here among these elite warriors, those childhood experiences felt insignificant and naive. The training scenario was explained with military precision. The team would be conducting a simulated hostage rescue operation on a mock compound about 2 miles away. Intelligence suggested that enemy snipers were positioned at various points around the target building, and the team's job was to neutralize these threats while providing cover for the assault team. It was the kind of complex, multi-layered operation that required split-second timing and absolute trust between team members. Was assigned the role of Overwatch sniper, positioned on a ridge that overlooked the entire operation area. It was both an honor and a test. The Overwatch position required someone who could see the bigger picture, make quick decisions, and provide accurate fire support when needed. The fact that they were willing to give this responsibility to an 18-year-old trainee spoke to either desperation or a twisted sense of humor among the leadership. As the team prepared their equipment, couldn't help but notice the difference between his standard-issue gear and the high-tech equipment the SEALs carried. Their rifles were customized pieces of art, perfectly balanced and fitted with optics that cost more than most people's cars. Would be working with a standard military sniper rifle that, while reliable, felt like a toy in comparison. The walk to the starting position took 30 minutes through rough terrain that tested everyone's physical conditioning. Kept pace without complaint, but he could feel the others watching him, waiting for signs that he couldn't handle the physical demands of the mission. The weight of his equipment felt heavier with each step, not because of its actual mass, but because of the pressure to prove himself worthy of being there. Commander stopped the team at a ridge overlooking their target area. Through his binoculars, could see the mock compound in the distance. a collection of buildings that had been set up to simulate real-world urban combat scenarios. Mannequins had been positioned to represent both hostages and enemy combatants, and the entire setup was monitored by instructors who would evaluate every aspect of the team's performance. "All right, people, this is where we separate the professionals from the pretenders," announced, his voice carrying across the team. "You'll be taking position on that outcrop to our east. You'll have clear lines of sight to most of the compound, but you'll also be exposed if you're not careful. Think you can handle that level of responsibility?" Look toward the position had indicated. It was a challenging spot that would require him to move carefully and set up quickly while remaining hidden from the simulated enemy positions. The distance to most targets would be between 800 and 1,200 yards, not impossible, but far from easy, especially under the pressure of a timed exercise with so much scrutiny. "I can handle it, sir," replied, hoping his voice sounded more confident than he felt. The truth was, he had never attempted shots at this distance under these kinds of conditions. His hunting experience had mostly involved targets at much closer ranges, and while he had performed well in basic sniper training, this was an entirely different level of complexity. The team began moving toward their assigned positions, with splitting off to make his way to the overwatch point. As he climbed toward his designated spot, he could hear fragments of radio chatter from the other team members. The casual professionalism in their voices reminded him just how far out of his league he was. These men communicated with the kind of shorthand that came from years of working together in life-or-death situations. Finding the perfect position on the rocky outcrop took several precious minutes. Had to balance concealment with clear lines of sight, ensuring he could cover the maximum area while remaining hidden from potential counter-snipers. The morning sun was climbing higher, creating shifting shadows that would affect visibility throughout the exercise. Every decision about positioning had to account for how conditions might change over the course of the mission. As set up his rifle and began ranging targets throughout the compound, he tried to block out the doubt that was creeping into his mind. The other team members had decades of combined experience, specialized training, and equipment that gave them significant advantages. All had was natural shooting ability and a stubborn determination not to embarrass himself completely. The radio crackled to life with its voice. "All positions report ready status." One by one, the experienced operators reported their readiness with calm professionalism. When his turn came, he keyed his radio with hands that he hoped weren't shaking visibly. "Overwatch in position and ready, sir." "Copy that. Try not to shoot any of the good guys by mistake." The comment drew chuckles from the other team members, and felt his face flush with embarrassment and determination in equal measure. He adjusted his scope settings one final time and settled into a shooting position that he hoped would serve him well for whatever challenges the next few hours would bring. The real test was about to begin, and failure was not an option he was willing to consider. The exercise began with the kind of controlled chaos that had only read about in military manuals. Through his scope, he watched as the assault team began their approach to the compound, moving with the fluid precision that marked them as elite operators. Every movement was calculated, every step planned to minimize exposure while maintaining the element of surprise that would be crucial to mission success. His job was to identify and eliminate simulated enemy snipers before they could threaten his teammates. The targets were represented by sophisticated mannequins equipped with sensors that would register hits and determine whether a shot would have been lethal in a real scenario. The technology was impressive, but it also meant that every shot would be precisely measured and recorded for later analysis. The first target appeared in a second-story window of the main building, roughly 900 yards from his position. Through his scope, he could see the figure positioned behind what appeared to be sandbags, a classic sniper hide that provided both protection and concealment. The shot would require accounting for wind, distance, and the slight elevation difference between his position and the target. Controlled his breathing, settling into the rhythm that his grandfather had taught him years ago during those early hunting expeditions. The world narrowed to just him, his rifle, and the target in his crosshairs. He made minute adjustments to compensate for the morning breeze that was picking up across the valley, then slowly squeezed the trigger with the steady pressure that separated good shooters from mediocre ones. The shot rang out across the valley and immediately began scanning for the next threat while waiting for confirmation of his hit. The radio crackled with updates from spotters positioned throughout the exercise area, but he filtered out everything except information relevant to his mission. Tunnel vision was a luxury he couldn't afford when his teammates' simulated lives depended on his ability to see the bigger picture. "Clean hit on target 1, came the voice of an instructor over the radio. "Target neutralized." Felt a surge of relief and confidence, but he knew that one successful shot meant nothing in the context of the larger mission. The real test would come when multiple targets appeared simultaneously, forcing him to prioritize threats and make split-second decisions under pressure. The assault team was making good progress toward the compound when the exercise controllers introduced the first major complication. 3 enemy positions activated simultaneously in different buildings, creating a scenario where would need to engage multiple targets in rapid succession. The closest threat was only 600 yards away, while the furthest was nearly 1,300 yards, a significant difference that would require quick adjustments to his scope settings. Identified the immediate threat first, a figure positioned to fire directly into the path of the advancing assault team. Without the luxury of time to perfect his shot, he made rapid calculations and fired, then immediately shifted to the second target while his first shot was still traveling downrange. The fluid transition between targets required muscle memory and instinctive understanding of his rifle that he had developed through countless hours of practice. The second shot followed quickly and was already acquiring his third target when the confirmations came through his earpiece. 2 clean hits, both targets neutralized within the narrow time window that would have prevented them from engaging the assault team. The third shot, at maximum range, required more careful consideration of environmental factors. Wind conditions at 1,300 yards were significantly different from what he was experiencing at his position. Had to account for the bullet's flight time, the valley's wind patterns, and the increased effect of gravity over the extended distance. He took an extra second to ensure his calculations were correct, knowing that a miss at this range would be both embarrassing and potentially mission-critical. The shot felt perfect the moment he pulled the trigger. The rifle's recoil was absorbed by his properly positioned body, and he maintained sight picture long enough to see the target react to the impact. The satisfaction of a difficult shot executed under pressure was unlike anything he had experienced during basic training exercises. "Outstanding shooting," Kame's voice over the radio, and could hear genuine surprise and approval in the commander's tone. "Keep it up." The praise from someone he respected gave a boost of confidence that carried him through the next phase of the exercise. The assault team was approaching the main building when the controllers activated what they called the nightmare scenario, a complex sequence of threats that would test every aspect of the team's training and coordination. Multiple enemy snipers appeared in windows and rooftops throughout the compound, some positioned to engage the assault team while others targeted its position directly. For the first time during the exercise, he found himself under simulated counter-sniper fire, forcing him to balance offensive operations with his own survival and concealment. Dropped below the skyline of his position as simulated bullets cracked overhead, then repositioned to a secondary firing point that he had identified during his initial setup. The movement cost him precious seconds, but it also gave him a different angle on several targets that had been partially concealed from his original position. The next several minutes tested every skill had developed over his short military career. He engaged targets in rapid succession, sometimes firing at figures who appeared for only seconds before disappearing back into concealment. Each shot required instant range estimation, wind reading, and target prioritization based on the threat level to his teammates below. During one particularly intense sequence, identified 5 separate threats appearing within a 30-second window. The targets were at varying distances and elevations, requiring constant adjustment of his scope settings and shooting position. He fired methodically, moving from closest to furthest threat while maintaining awareness of his ammunition count and the positions of his teammates. The radio traffic became more intense as the assault team encountered resistance within the compound buildings. Could hear the tension in their voices as they cleared rooms and encountered unexpected scenarios designed to test their adaptability. His job was to provide overwatch and eliminate external threats, but he found himself wishing he could do more to help his teammates navigate the challenges they were facing. As the exercise progressed, began to notice something that surprised him. His shooting performance was not just adequate, it was exceptional. Every target he engaged was being neutralized with first-round hits, and his response times were consistently faster than what the exercise controllers had expected. The natural shooting ability that had gotten him noticed during basic training was proving itself under the most demanding circumstances he had ever faced. The climax of the exercise came when the assault team was pinned down by enemy fire from multiple positions simultaneously. Found himself facing the most complex shooting problem of his young career. 6 separate targets that needed to be eliminated in a specific sequence to prevent them from overwhelming the assault team's defensive positions. The targets were positioned at ranges from 750 to 1,400 yards, with varying degrees of cover and concealment. Some were fully exposed, while others showed only small portions of their profiles through windows or around barriers. Would need to engage them in an order that prevented mutual support between positions, while ensuring that the most immediate threats to his teammates were neutralized first. He took a deep breath and began what would later be described by observers as one of the most impressive displays of precision shooting they had ever witnessed. Moving with mechanical precision, engaged each target in turn, his rifle becoming an extension of his will as he delivered accurate fire across a wide range of distances and conditions. The first 3 shots were fired within 20 seconds, each one finding its mark despite the pressure and complexity of the situation. The 4th target required a particularly difficult shot through a narrow window opening at nearly maximum range, but's bullet found its mark with the same precision that had characterized his earlier shooting. Targets 5 and 6 fell in rapid succession, completed the sequence that allowed the assault team to break cover and complete their mission objective. The entire engagement had lasted less than 3 minutes, but in that time had demonstrated shooting skills that impressed even the seasoned instructors who were monitoring every aspect of the exercise. As the exercise concluded and the team began consolidating their equipment, could see the change in how the SEAL team members looked at him. The skepticism and barely concealed amusement had been replaced by something approaching respect. He had proven himself under pressure in a way that no amount of basic training could have prepared him for. Commander approached position as he was cleaning his rifle, and the expression on the veteran's face was completely different from the condescending smirk he had worn that morning. There was genuine curiosity now, mixed with the kind of professional appreciation that one marksman gives to another after witnessing exceptional shooting. "That was some impressive work up here," said, settling down beside the young sniper. "I've seen a lot of shooters over the years, and what you just did doesn't happen by accident. Where did you learn to shoot like that?" Looked up from his rifle, still hardly believing what had just happened. The morning had started with him feeling like an outsider who didn't belong, and now he was sitting with Commander, being treated like an equal rather than a burden the team had been forced to carry. The transformation in the veteran's attitude was almost as surprising as his own performance during the exercise. "My grandfather taught me to hunt when I was 8 years old," replied, his voice steady now in a way it hadn't been that morning. "He was a Marine in the Pacific during World War II, spent 3 years island hopping and learned to shoot because his life depended on it. He used to say that shooting was 90% mental and 10% technical skill." Nodded thoughtfully, recognizing the wisdom that often came from combat veterans of that generation. "That explains the fundamentals, but what you did out there today was more than just good hunting skills. You made decisions under pressure that some of my guys struggle with after years of training. Tell me about your thought process during that final sequence." The question surprised because it suggested that was genuinely interested in understanding how an 18-year-old trainee had outperformed expectations so dramatically. Thought back to those intense minutes when everything had seemed to slow down, when his training and instincts had merged into something that felt almost automatic. "I remembered something my grandfather told me about combat shooting," said, carefully choosing his words. "He said that in a real firefight you don't have time to think about every variable. You train until the basics become automatic, and then you trust your training while focusing on what really matters, protecting the people who are counting on you." The other team members had gathered around during this conversation, drawn by curiosity about the young shooter who had just demonstrated skills that challenged their assumptions about experience and training. Who had been making jokes about age that morning, now looked at him with the kind of respect reserved for proven warriors. "You know, kid, I've been through sniper school twice, and I don't think I could have made some of those shots you pulled off today," admitted, his earlier condescension completely gone. "Especially that 1,000-yard shot through the window. I was watching through binoculars and I barely saw the target before you dropped it." The Afghanistan veteran added his own perspective. "What impressed me most was your target prioritization. You didn't just shoot at whatever looked easiest. You systematically eliminated threats based on what would help the assault team most. That kind of tactical thinking usually takes years to develop." The praise from these experienced operators meant more to than any formal recognition he might receive. These men had earned their reputations through real combat experience, and their approval suggested that his performance hadn't been a fluke or beginner's luck. He had demonstrated genuine skill under circumstances that revealed character as much as marksmanship ability. Commander stood up and looked out over the compound where the exercise had taken place. "I want you to understand what happened here today. We don't usually invite trainees to participate in these advanced exercises. The truth is, we needed someone to fill the Overwatch position, and frankly, we expected you to struggle with the complexity of the scenarios." Felt a mixture of vindication and disappointment at this revelation. Part of him had hoped that his selection for the exercise had been based on recognition of his potential, rather than simple necessity. But he also understood that the military often created opportunities through practical needs rather than idealistic planning. "Instead," continued, "you turned in a performance that would be impressive for someone with 5 years of specialized training. Every shot was clean, your timing was perfect, and your decision-making under pressure was exactly what we needed. That doesn't happen by accident." The instructor who had been monitoring the exercise approached the group with a tablet containing the detailed scoring data from his performance. The numbers were even more impressive when viewed objectively. 18 targets engaged, 18 hits, with an average engagement time that was significantly faster than the established standards for the exercise. "I've been running these simulations for 8 years, the instructor said, looking directly at. "I've seen hundreds of shooters go through this course, including some of the best snipers in the military. Your performance today ranks in the top 5 I've ever recorded, and you're the youngest participant by at least 6 years." The statistical validation of his performance helped understand that what had happened wasn't just a good day or favorable conditions. He had demonstrated a level of skill that placed him among elite company, despite his relative inexperience and youth. The realization was both exciting and overwhelming. As the team prepared to return to base, pulled aside for a private conversation. The commander's expression was serious, suggesting that their discussion would go beyond simple congratulations or casual mentoring advice. "I'm going to be direct with you because I think you can handle it," began. "What you demonstrated today is the kind of raw talent that the special operations community is always looking for. With the right training and experience, you could become one of the best snipers in the military." Felt his heart rate increase as he considered the implications of his words. The possibility of joining the elite ranks of military snipers had never seemed realistic before today. But now it was being presented as a genuine opportunity by someone whose opinion carried significant weight. "However," continued, "natural talent is just the starting point. The real question is whether you have the mental toughness and dedication required to develop that talent into something truly exceptional. Elite snipers aren't just good shooters. They're warriors who can operate independently in hostile territory, make life-or-death decisions without supervision, and maintain their effectiveness under conditions that would break most people." The warning was clear, and appreciated his honesty about the challenges he would face. Military snipers operated in a world where mistakes had consequences that went far beyond personal embarrassment or career setbacks. The responsibility that came with that role was something that needed to be understood and accepted before anyone could begin the journey toward becoming truly elite. "I understand, sir," replied. "I know that what happened today was just one exercise under controlled conditions, but I also know that I want to find out what I'm really capable of. If you think I have the potential to be that good, then I want to pursue it." Smiled for the first time since their conversation began, and could see approval in the veteran's expression. "That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say. I'm going to make some calls when we get back to base. There are people who need to know about your performance today, and there are opportunities that might be worth exploring." The walk back to base gave time to process everything that had happened during what had started as a routine training day. In the span of a few hours, his entire military career had taken a direction he never could have anticipated. The skeptical looks and condescending comments from that morning felt like they had happened weeks ago rather than just a few hours earlier. The other team members treated him differently during the return journey, including him in conversations that would have been above his clearance level that morning. They shared stories from their own careers, offered advice about military life, and asked genuine questions about his background and goals. The transformation from outsider to accepted team member was complete and undeniable. As they approached the base, could see other personnel gathering to hear about the exercise results. Word had already spread about the impressive performance turned in by the young trainee, and there was obvious curiosity about whether the stories were accurate or exaggerated. Realized that his anonymity on the base was probably gone forever, replaced by a reputation that would bring both opportunities and expectations. Commander stopped the team before they entered the main compound. Before we go in there, I want you to remember something important. Today proved that you have exceptional natural ability, but it was just the beginning. Real success in this business comes from consistent performance under increasingly difficult conditions. Don't let today's achievements make you overconfident about the challenges ahead. Nodded, understanding the wisdom in his advice. The exercise had been a significant moment in his military career, but it was ultimately just one step in what would hopefully be a long journey of growth and achievement. The foundation had been laid, but the real work was just beginning. As they walked through the base gates, caught sight of his reflection in a window, and realized that something fundamental had changed in how he carried himself. The uncertainty and nervousness that had characterized his morning had been replaced by quiet confidence and determination. He had proven himself under pressure, earned the respect of elite warriors, and discovered capabilities he hadn't known he possessed. The 18-year-old trainee who had started the day worried about embarrassing himself had become someone with genuine potential for greatness in one of the military's most demanding specialties. The journey ahead would be challenging and demanding, but now knew that he had the foundation necessary to pursue excellence at the highest levels of his profession. The story of the young sniper who outperformed a SEAL team would be told and retold throughout the base, growing with each telling but remaining fundamentally true to the reality of that remarkable day. Had announced himself as someone to watch, and his military career would never be the same.